So Cathryn's an amazing person. I'll stop. She'll talk to you and you'll find out just how amazing she is. So welcome, Cathryn. So hi everybody. My preference is never to stand behind a dais because I am so short. But you know, it's Sunday morning, it's hard. It was hard for the tech people too, so they just took off. First off, I want you to take a second and just close your eyes. So while you're closing your eyes, just go ahead and come present in this space. Just get present. And now for a moment, turn your attention to the sounds in the room. Just listen. If you counted more than 3 sounds, go ahead and stand up. If you counted more than 3. If you counted 5 or more sounds in the room, go ahead and stay standing. Nice, Leanne. How many sounds did you get, Leanne?
Well, I can't stand the sound of a ticking clock, so everything.
Everything. Okay. So did you count it? Did you get a number of how many sounds you picked up on?
Over 10.
Over 10. Yeah. Now, go ahead and look around the room. Again, we've been here for about 2 days more, but really look at the room. Look at the ceiling. Look at the colors. Look at the light. Try to see if you can notice some things you haven't noticed yet. So this is our environment. And I'm sure that, I mean, how many of you, when you saw the thing about what's about the environment, it's gonna be about taking care of the environment, right? The earth. Did any of you kind of think that's where we were gonna go with this? Yeah. But this right here, this room, has been our major environment for the past couple of days. I want to ask you a question. How many of you, and you can do this by a raise of hands, how many of you have felt relatively comfortable in this room for a few hours at a time? How many of you think you would be comfortable in this environment for 8 hours straight without leaving? How about 2 days? How about 12 months? There are myriad components to an environment at any given moment. And at every given moment, each one of those components is either contributing to our overall health or detracting from it. And there's a continuum, right? Some components of our environment are extremely damaging to our health. Some are more in the middle, some are just kind of irritating. They might start to wear away at us. And this is a pretty comfortable environment. The chairs are pretty comfortable, it's quiet. But 2 days, I don't know that I want to be. I know that I was ready for some sunshine after a few of those talks. You start to lose track of what time is it. It becomes tiring, right? The fluorescent light. That's what we're talking about when we talk about health and environment. That's what I'm going to talk about with you today. COVID, right, was really interesting. And what happened for me, and I think a lot of us, that experience, and this idea of unmasking, was that some of us were sent home, right? Some of us had to be in these environments that were now extremely stressful. For me, my experience, I was on Zoom meetings, and it started out, everybody would kind of show up like this, right? You'd have makeup on, you'd put the shirt on. I mean, there are jokes about everybody had pajama pants on underneath and slippers, and why not, right? And as the months wore on, we started to see more of us women showing up with a hoodie on and a ponytail, just kind of going, you know, why, what, why? Why am I dressing up? For the important meetings, we still did though, right? It depended on who was going to be there, and it still does depend on who's going to be there. But that gift of realizing maybe we can do things a little bit differently. Maybe I don't need to come in full makeup all the time. Maybe I can show myself a little bit more for to these people around me, and it's okay. The word vulnerability has come up a lot. Our vulnerability is something that exists all the time. And we can try to cover it up, but it's always there. So in terms of our environments that we exist in, caring for our environments is a form of self-care. And we've learned how important self-care is. We can't function if we're not caring for ourselves. We talked about that a lot, that vulnerability is a way of doing that. That connecting with each other is a way of doing that. And what I want to talk with you about now is that caring for our environments, these environments in which we exist, is a form of self-care. The other aspect that I want us to keep in mind is that the people, the individuals that we are charged with, their care, the caring for their environments is a way to care for them. Then the question comes up, how do we know what helps and what hurts in an environment? How do we know? I'm going to talk about 3 different ways. So the first thing to consider is human history. How we've evolved as human beings and as a culture. So humans are evolved to a certain type of environment. Our environments have changed dramatically over the past just few hundred years. Dramatically. So what humans used to be doing was this, right? The days of a human being were filled with being out in nature, hunting, fishing, farming, gathering. That's what human beings were doing. That is what we are evolved to. It's what our brains are evolved to. It's what our bodies are evolved to. In the past few hundred years, this is our world. It's loud. It's overstimulating. How many of you have had the experience of going to a restaurant and having to scream at the people across from you to try to have a conversation? Have any of you had that experience? Yeah, okay. So you think about that. Think about concerts, right, that are that noisy. But beyond that, beyond just the ear, there's what it's doing to us on a chemical level, and an emotional level, a biochemical level. Our brains are literally not evolved to process this kind of auditory information. Our brains are evolved to process the sound of the snap of a twig behind us as we're walking through the forest. They are evolved to process bird song. What bird song does for the brain is it causes it to downregulate. It signals safety. There's no storm coming. There's no predator nearby. That's what birdsong does for us on a chemical level. The ocean, or any sound of water, signals safety in that I will be able to provide for myself. I will have water to drink, and there's food. That's why being around water is so relaxing to us, because it signals to our bodies on a chemical level that we're safe and that we're gonna have what we need. So there's that. Okay, the other thing to consider is research. There is a ton of research going on right now, and it has to do with the fact, like just an explosion of research, because we now have these incredible fMRI machines, right? So it's technology that's beautifully and wonderfully allowing us to map the brain and measure micro differences in the chemical levels in our bodies. The third thing is to just pay attention. And I am pretty convinced that this is a lost art. And it's one of the reasons that I push mindfulness so much. Human beings 200, 300 years ago, 400 years ago, had mindfulness built into their daily lives. There was a lot of silence, There was a lot of paying attention, like we did in this room, just really paying attention to what's going on around us. How often do we do that? I know usually for myself, it's the thoughts in my head, just going like this, going. But really learning to pay attention. How does this space feel when I walk into it? I don't think we can undervalue that. The research is great, right? It's really good stuff. But we have to learn to pay attention to ourselves. How does my body feel? How does my heart feel when I'm in this space? So I'm gonna give you 3 quick tips. Okay, 3 quick tips that you can start doing in your own lives for self-care. The first one is silence. A lot of times the first thing that will happen when you start doing this, trying to experience silence, is that your brain will get really noisy. Okay, all of a sudden those thoughts will just start coming. And I think a lot of us want sound on a lot of the time, a lot of people, because we're uncomfortable with those thoughts that start coming up. And this goes back to that vulnerability piece, right? We have to be willing to kind of sit with that. And as I've heard poets say, go to the bottom of the well, right? Go down into the dark. Go to those places. Sit in silence long enough, and we let those thoughts just kind of run through. They will start to quieten. They'll start to slow down. They'll start to soften, and then you'll start to be able to experience some real silence. And it's delicious. It's absolutely delicious. Nature. We need connection with nature. There is something about not being connected with nature that is starving to us. So once again, it's not about just what we need to eliminate, but what do we need to add into our lives? What are our bodies and our brains and our senses craving? They're craving the sound of water. They're craving the sound, moving water especially. They're craving the sound of the breeze through the trees. Sure. What I suggest is if you cannot get out to nature, bring nature into you. I've heard people say, but I kill plants. It's okay. There are a lot of really good plants that you can't kill. Just go to your local nursery and tell them I kill plants. So what do I need to start with? And if your plant dies, it's okay. Just go get another one. There are plenty of plants. So just bring it into you. The third one is meditation. That practicing mindfulness has become necessary to our overall health because it is no longer built into our lifestyles where it used to be for humans. It used to be built into our lives. So people say, well, this is just this is the next trendy thing, right? Meditation. Yeah, because we need it now. We didn't used to need it, but we do now. 15 minutes a day. That is the recommendation. So the research shows that at that 15-minute mark is where we start to reap all of those benefits that you get from mindfulness. Better concentration, lower cortisol levels, all the biochemical stuff that is so wonderful that people get from meditation. It's that 15-minute mark where we start to actually see it. So at least 15 minutes a day. Obviously, if you can do more, that's great. There's no right way to meditate, okay? So if there's some teacher or something saying this is the right way to do it, that is not true. There is no right way to do it. You just figure out what works for you. But 15 minutes a day, preferably in the morning, it will change your life. It will absolutely change your life. You will feel like you have more time in your day. But find your spot you go to every day and just sit. And just keep reminding yourself there's nothing to do right now. This is the most important thing I have to do right now. This is the most important thing. And it will support your work in every other area of your life. You'll be more present, you'll be more calm, you'll be more connected with yourself, like building that relationship with the self. That is so important. This is absolutely the way to do it. It has become necessary because our brains and bodies have not caught up with the evolution of our culture. Our culture has evolved too fast for us to catch up. So that's why it is necessary. That's why it is the new trend. Okay, that's the one, if I can just say, just please do that. That's the big thing. So when you face those moments where you feel alone, I want you to remember you are not in any way alone. Because there is all of us. And what I invite you to do is when you have those moments that you feel alone, to take a moment, stop, breathe, come present, and connect with that energy that is there all the time. So I want to thank you for the work that you do. I always get a little emotional when I do this. I try to do it every time I speak. But it's very important to me that our world gets better. And you all are making that happen. You're doing work every day that is helping make the world a better place. In our little corners, our little things that we do, and when we struggle. And what I want to emphasize to you is that you are worth some self-care. And what I also want to promise you is that if you do care for yourselves, you will be able to better care for others. I appreciate you, and you are appreciated by so many people. So when the haters are hating, just, ignore the haters and remember that most of us get it. Most of us get it. So again, thank you so much for being here Sunday morning, and bless you all. Thank you.